Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? And I used to tell that to people and they would fucking laugh at me. And then I heard you say that and I was like, ah, okay, you get that. And in that interview, which I watched very closely, Tony said something to you that to me made so much sense that it profoundly changed what was next in my life. And he said, at your core, you are a giver, and that is why you are prospering. Talk to me about your journey to getting to this place to being a giver, Tom.
All right. So I know you've heard me talk about this before, but I really want to drive home for people. You're having a biological experience. So you are a product of evolution. And I'm perfectly fine with God kicked off the evolutionary path. So I don't think that denigrates spirituality in any way. Um, but you're having a biological experience. And so there are things that feel good and there are things that feel bad. And when you grow to understand what the evolutionary triggers are for the things that feel good, then it becomes very simple to align your life with those things. And we are a social creature, and plugging us into a social matrix, but in not the matrixy way, but like an interwoven lattice, if you will, of realizing that we're not separate from each other in how our minds work. And I heard that, I think it was Lisa Feldman Barrett that said to me, we have a nature that requires nurture. So we have this interplay from the moment we are born to play off of other people. And once you realize, okay, I'm in a dance with everybody. And part of that dance is adding value. And when you add value to other people's lives, whether you want it to be true or not, it really gives you something. And so realizing through business, ironically, that I just enjoyed my life more when I felt like the things that I were fighting for helped not only myself, but helped other people as well. And so I had a moment of crisis in business where I was like, this isn't fun. And no matter how much money I make, this isn't fun the way that I'm doing it now. And so I pushed back against it emotionally, said, I'll never do that again. I'm only going to do things where I can add value to other people's lives. And of course, wanting to add value also to my own life, but realizing in that moment that you can add value to your own life by adding value to other people's lives. And that just suddenly put me in alignment with certainly my own idiosyncrasies in terms of how I'm wired. We're not all wired the same. And so that suddenly brought me into alignment with the things that I was getting a natural neurochemical response from. And so it shifted me into a period in business where I realized that showing up and trying to make money wasn't motivating enough to fight through the hard times. But showing up to, at that time, fight for my mom and my sister, that was motivating. And so I could build a business around something that felt like I was fighting for these two people that I really love, and then extend that now to impact theory. And it was shifting sort of who my prime focus was to other people in my life that had struggled with something completely different. And so by doing that and feeling like I'm showing up and fighting for these people, that feels really good. It just switches your brain to optimize for value creation instead of value extraction. Um, and then irony of ironies is we're living through a period right now, which I hope lasts forever, where the more value you can create in somebody else's life, that you can actually enrich yourself financially, spiritually, in every conceivable way. And so, historically, people that have been tremendously successful in business have been looked at sideways as if they had perpetrated some, sort of great crime. And maybe that was true in the past, but now in a hyper connected world, being a good person is the most powerful marketing vehicle that exists. So it is an era where I can thrive as an entrepreneur. I would not have thrived, 30 years ago or 50 years ago, where being extractive might have been a better technique from a get wealthy perspective. I just wouldn't have worked at that period.
Do you feel like so with that said, and I totally resonate to that because I look at the transformation of my life very much being in deciding and making a decision to become of service to other people. And you said something really fascinating to me where I recognized one time the parlays in our journey in this really interesting way that I think only you will get. From this journey of you doing stand-up comedy to selling prepaid legal to having a photography business, digging in your couch for change to go to a job interview, sleeping in a closet on this blow-up mattress, this whole fucking thing, right? I like, dude, on par have experienced pretty much all of those same things. And the thing that I recognized in that was I was still always looking forward to what was next. I was just always trying to figure out how to get there. What was it really that happened? Was there a pivotal moment or a turning point and when you recognized that value creation was the way that you were gonna change your life?
Definitely. So I was showing up every day for almost a decade just saying, "I'm here to get rich." And it didn't seem like a problem. Like, I didn't recognize that why I was doing something mattered as much as it does. And so, finally, I was just so fed up. My wife had pulled me aside and said, "Look, you're working" through her lens, what it seemed like was, "You're working so much, you're unhappy, and because you're unhappy and working so much, it's now damaging the marriage." And when she said it's damaging the marriage, I was like, "Whoa, time to pump the brakes. I need to really look at this." And realize that I wasn't unhappy because I was working so much. I was unhappy because of what I was working on. And in trying to address the what I was working on, you start asking the why am I working this hard question? And once you get to why, now you've got a foundation that you can build on. So at the time, my language was I want to feel alive. And that was I had realized that I had sort of numbed myself chasing money, that it didn't make me feel alive. It took more energy than it gave. And so I wanted to do something that gave me more energy than it took. And that brought me back to creativity, to writing. Um, and it only ends up lasting like an hour because my partners end up calling me in because I had quit. I went in and quit and said, "Look, here's your equity back. I'm not going to cross the finish line. I don't want anything for this. I'm just going to move to some remote town in Greece." That was the plan, somewhere where I could cut my expenses down to virtually nothing and I could just write all day, film and TV. And in that moment, the sense of liberation of orienting my life around things that are fun, even if I'm losing, that became the rallying cry for me. And in mindset circles, at least, whatever, 15, 20 years ago, everyone was saying the question you need to ask is what would you do and love? Sorry, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And asking that question leads you to do things that like are outcome driven versus asking a fundamentally different question, which is what would I do and love every day, even if I were failing? And so because I knew that no one could guarantee my success, but the struggle was guaranteed, it really shifted my mindset. So I went in, I do the whole quitting thing. I'm driving home. My partners call and say, hold on, we actually feel the same. Like we want to feel alive too. So what's going to be that thing that we can all do together? But because I had done the hard part, which I was actually really ashamed of going in and quitting, but I just knew I wasn't prepared to feel that way anymore. I wasn't gonna go back now that I'd already done the hard part, which was, looking at these 2 guys that I loved and cared for very deeply and say, "Sorry, like, I can't keep doing this." I wasn't gonna go back into a miserable situation. So I was like, "For me to do this, it's got" I'm putting these boundaries, "It's gotta look like XYZ." And so for me, that was creating value for other people. It was building something based on a passion, something that I knew that I could fight for every day, get kicked in the face over and over and over, and still have a deep sense of fulfillment. And so that became the North Star that manifests as Quest Nutrition. Learn incredibly powerful lessons doing that. Take all those learnings and now am building the sort of ultimate thing that I never planned to sell. This is my forever company. And it's optimized from the ground up to be the thing that I will love fighting for until my dying breath.